Our next guest has just joined the football fraternity. In fact, he's recently become the chairman of Norwich, but we know him better when we watched him in an entirely different bear pit.
And I want to know the answer to the question, which Labour ministers were involved? Answer that question.
Answer. That's it, Madam Deputy Speaker. That is not what he said. He said to the Spectator, they were clearly involved. That's Ed Balls, by the way. Where's the evidence? You should either put up or shut up. Present the evidence, apologise. That's his choice if he has any integrity in this House, Madam Deputy Speaker.
We're delighted to say the new Norwich chairman, Ed Balls, is with us. Morning, Ed.
Bit of a flashback, that.
Yeah, what's it like in there when you've got all that going on? Look, you'd love it. You'd be flying in there.
They all shout at each other.
Well, that's what you'd be great in there, wouldn't you?
In the air.
Yeah,
I think it's
in Parliament.
Yeah, but he shouts at everybody in here.
They're intelligent in Parliament.
Yeah.
It's really close together. So actually, you're only about 2 yards apart, and it's very small, and it can be really loud. And so if it goes wrong for you, if you lose momentum, if people turn against you, then it's really, really a vicious place.
So what made you leave that thing, Parliament, to be a football chairman?
The electorate. General election, people vote. And I was an MP for 10 years, but then in the last general election, I just lost my constituency up in Leeds to the Conservatives. So David Cameron got a majority, George Osborne's still the Chancellor, I'm chairman of Norwich City. So the question is, who got the better deal?
Well, it might be more enjoyable what you're going to do now, because I know it's a Labour love for you.
Yep.
You were telling us when you sat down that you first came to watch an FA Cup tie here back in 1973.
Yep.
Ted McDougall was your favourite player at the time.
He was.
You've been a fan of this place for a long time. So to get the opportunity now to have a real opportunity to steer it and guide it and build it, that must be fantastic.
It is, and my family can't quite believe it, because I was born in Norwich. All my dad, my uncles, my cousins, everybody's been Norwich for generations, and we've all come here and watched games, and so suddenly we've got a family member who's actually on the board, and so people can't quite believe it's happened. But it's hugely important, because if you're a football manager, you've got to say, we take every game as it comes. That's what you've got to do. But you've got to be planning for the next transfer window. If you are the board, though, you've got to be thinking about 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. We've got great facilities here, but can we make them bigger? Are we really equipped to compete at the kind of high financial level the Premier League's becoming? And all my life, we've been a yo-yo club. So we've gone up, and then we've gone down, we've gone up, we've gone down. That's getting harder in modern football. So the question is, can we make the strategic decisions to back the manager and the team and keep us up, not just for 1 or 2 years, but for 5 years? It's a big challenge for us.
Of course, as well, there's no excuse now for not being able to balance the books. As the former Shadow Chancellor, the last thing this club should ever do is get into financial trouble now.
Well, the good thing is I took over from the previous chairman who came in 6 years ago. Back then, we went down to Championship, then to Division 1. Paul Lambert came in. The finances at that point were a total disaster. Things had really gone wrong. The stand we're in today was a massive drain on us. And over those 6 years, it's been turned round. So we are now a totally debt-free club. We are really strong financially, and in a world where the Premier League money is going up and up. So at the moment, we're not encumbered by any debt. But of course, you've got to plan for the long term, and that's hard. So it's quite a big, delicate financial issue. If we were to go down, our money just goes, down in half. And that's a huge challenge for any business and any football club to deal with.
Are we to think now, because you've taken on this role, which is to be the chairman of a Premier League football club, it's a full-time job. It's not something you can do half-heartedly. Is that the political career over? Yeah. Or if that were to be re-energised in any way, would Norwich City have to go, or is this what you're going to do now moving forward?
I think in life you never say never, because you never know quite what's going to happen. But I did 20 years in politics, and I've done with politics. I'm out now. I'm not expecting to go back. I don't think I'll ever be re-elected again. I'm doing a number of different things. I'm at Harvard some of the time, and in the United States. But I'm here. We've got a great chief executive and a really great team. And Delia, Smith and Michael have been owners here for 20 years. Very strong, community-based family club. And my job is to make sure that we're strategic, professional, the board supports the manager and the players. It's not full-time, but it's really important. And I'm here any day, any night, when anybody wants me, I'm there for them.
But how did it come about? So you said you lost your seat.
Yep.
What did you then ring Norwich or they rung you? What happened? How did you?
Sure.
Do you mean from losing a seat to being the chairman of Norwich? How did it come about?
So the history is I've been, a fan for 40 years. I've had a season ticket for 15 years up in the Upper Barking. Still got it up just behind us here. I've known Michael and Delia for a long time, and I've been to lots of games, home and away, with the directors as well as an ordinary fan. And in the autumn, they came to me and said, we need to make some changes in the board. We want some people to come in who are a bit younger and also with some more financial experience, and would you come on to be a non-executive director? And I said yes. And then there was a change. The chairman, after 6 years, decided to move on. So I went from being asked to be a director to becoming the chairman in about 2.5 weeks.
So dream job?
Dream job.
So Prime Minister or this?
Oh, that's a really hard one. They're different jobs.
Well,
look, I am this.
You got to make a decision, Ed.
I am this, and I'm not going to be Prime Minister. So,
Somebody said to you now,
I am where
you
I
can
am.
be the chairman of Norwich City for the next 10 years of keeping the Premier League, or, tell you what, Ed, you're going to be the next Prime Minister. What would you take?
I don't think it quite works like that.
Doesn't work that way,
I don't think
because
anybody said, I'll tell you what, Ed.
I'm just saying, hypothetically.
I'll answer a slightly different question. If somebody had said to me 10 years ago...
Stop!
hang on.
Moving your questions.
Do you know what, Ed? Let me tell you something as well. You know when it says on that piece of paper that it's not a full-time role? Believe me, it will become very much a full-time role. There's no way you're going to have
especially
time
if it gets hard. 20 years ago, if somebody had said to me, you could be Prime Minister, I'd have thought, possible. If they said you could be chairman of Norwich City, no chance. So in that sense, it's even more of a dream than I ever dreamt of.
So what was the answer then, Ed?
I think, look, being the Prime Minister is a brilliant job. I'd love to be Prime Minister. And if somebody had said to me 10 years ago, you've got to choose, I'd probably have chosen to be Prime Minister, if I'm honest with you. But I've not got that choice, and I'm the chairman, and it's a dream job, and so I'm very happy with it.
So as a chairman, with a week left in the transfer window, you brought some decent
We've had a
signings
brilliant
in.
time already, haven't we?
But, as a fan,
Yep.
you thinking, we might need one or two more?
I think as a fan, I'm thinking I'd like us to do more in the next week and a half, 2 weeks.
Right.
And as a chairman, I'm thinking I'd like us to do a bit more in the next 2 weeks. And so in that sense, being a fan and being a chairman isn't in the end that different. The difference is, if you're a Norwich fan, you get to the third week and you're normally thinking, that time they did something. And actually our fans, I think, are a bit surprised. We've done a lot of business. We've done more business than anybody else so far in the Premier League. And we've brought in some really strong signings. I hope we'll see some of them today.
Niall Query says on Twitter, Stephen Naismith is the best signing of the January window.
We need somebody to come in and score some goals for us in the next few weeks. And we want somebody really experienced who knows the Premier League. The thing about Stephen is he can play behind the striker, he can play up front, left and right, very versatile. He'll support our strikers, and he's got real, Premiership credibility and experience, and that's really important. It's really hard to buy that. I don't think in my time we very often, when we've been in the Premier League, bought in proven Premier League players. We've tended to bring in players to see whether they can make it in the Premier League. So this is quite an unusual signing for us.
But just quickly, I know I'm getting a bit carried away. You're in the House of Commons, and you're all waving them papers and shouting at each other. Do you do it sometimes for fun and wind people up? Because I watch it sometimes thinking that can't be real. Because you're shouting at each other, waving papers. And when you come out, you all go for a pint in the bars.
Well, up to a point. I've always gone quite well with George Osborne. A bit less so David Cameron. I've never been for a pint with him. But it's a bit like cricket or, and in some ways, football. Sometimes it gets really intense, but there's also a little bit of, putting off your opposite number. So if you're playing up front and the defender's next to you, there's always going to be a bit of needle and a bit of chat. And that might be light-hearted and banter, but there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
The same in the House of Commons. So if you sit opposite, David Cameron's going on, a bit like you did to me 5 minutes ago. I'd often say to him, you're the Prime Minister, answer the question. Go on, do you not know the answer? Come on. Because actually, and it gets in his head and he starts to think, well, maybe I should answer the question. And if you can get somebody else's head, that's when they make mistakes. So cricket, football, politics, all the same.
He did the same with Wickham at the Cup. I remember we were playing that game, we stood in the tunnel before the game, and he said to the lad the Wickham player who was playing him in the Cup.
Don't we lost?
Just before we come, we lost. Just before the game, he said, where have you parked? He said, you parked next to my Ferrari. It was literally just before the game.
No, I didn't, Darren.
Then we went and lost 2-1. Brilliant.
That might hold back your political career.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure about the hair.
Well,
I think you might just drop it. In Parliament, you have to drop it a level.
To be fair, Ed, you know Brad Pitt yourself here.
Oh my word! Well, I apologise on behalf of my partner. When we look at this, when you look at it here on a serious football question, what is the potential here? When you look at it as the chairman, obviously staying up in the Premier League this year is the priority, and you've got to do that, and you can build from there. But when you look at the long-term plan, and you spoke about 3 years and 5 years, where do you see this club being in that 3 to 5 year window?
Look, we can only succeed is if in every aspect we're better than everybody else. So we've got to have really good training facilities. Our whole sports science medical side is superb at the moment. We are top of the league for injuries. We've got almost no injuries at all and haven't had all season. Of course, people want to see this ground get bigger. But there's so many stories in the past of clubs try to stay in the top league, you invest in the ground, and look at Bradford just down the road from where I was at Leeds, massive stadium, down 2 divisions. So there's always a question about whether or not if you go for the long-term investment, then you end up diverting resources from the playing side of it, which is the most important. Having said that, if we're going to succeed in an international league, we've got to be internationally known. We've got to have the facilities and the players and everything to really deliver that. We need to be touring Asia in the next 5 years, not just leaving that to Manchester United, Liverpool and Arsenal.
Really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
One last question, it's tiny, one-word answer.
Go on.
Edie or Sutton?
Edie.
Oh.
Hey.
That's why you never won your seat.
In the end, these top, the highest level strikers, 2 a penny.
But you went for Darren.
But, the kind of really fast, nippy Ghana skill. Actually, I was here for the Inter game in the UEFA Cup back in 93-94, which we should have won that day. And Darren didn't get in the team, but Chris was playing and he was superb.
You already know that because you asked us before.
I thought you were both in the team because I couldn't believe Darren Eady never played it, every game. But it turned out that day the manager made a mistake and we paid him the pitch.
Great to see you. Thanks very much for coming in.